Last week, Mistral released their version 3, which kind of missed the mark. They have redeemed themselves with 2 new coding models, along with a new CLI called Mistral Vibe, which looks pretty neat. Now, Mistral is very important to the open weight category of model. A couple of years ago, along with the Llama from Meta, they were really the only ones pushing open weight models. In fact, the very first open weight mixer of expert model was released by Mistral. It was really a big deal back in the day. Companies like Cren, DeepSeek, and Kimi have been driving the open weight revolution. But with the recent releases, it seems like Mistral is back in supporting open weight models. And with this new release, they are back on top. So they released 2 different coding models, Devstral 2 and Devstral Small. On Sui Benchmark, Devstral 2 is on par with the best open weight model, like DeepSeek v3.2, although it's much smaller compared to models from Kimi and DeepSeek. And they can be a really great option if you're looking at a performant model, but you want them to be cost-effective, because the number of parameters of these models is much smaller compared to some of their rivals. But there are some really interesting choices around the licensing. So the Devstral 2 model is released under a modified MIT license, whereas the Devstral Small is released under Apache 2.0. The bigger Devstral is 123 billion parameter, whereas the smaller is only 24 billion, which enables you to run the smaller sibling on consumer hardware if you're using a quantized version. Now, some very interesting choices in terms of benchmarks are they only reported benchmarks for Sui Bench. They haven't mentioned any other benchmark at all. They're comparing the bigger model directly with Claude Sonnet, so they say that it can give you up to 7 times more cost efficient coding to Claude Sonnet at real-world tasks. However, if you do a comparison between Claude Sonnet 4.5 and Devstral 2, people usually prefer Sonnet 4.5, which is kind of expected. But the most interesting thing is that it seems to be on par with DeepSeek version 3.2, which was recently released. So about 70% of the people either like this model or thinks that it's comparable to DeepSeek. Now, if you look at just the preferences, that comes to about 43%, which is pretty significant, given that this model is much smaller compared to DeepSeek v3. Later in the video, we're going to also look at the Mistral Vibe CLI, which is a great name for a vibe coding tool. Now, this can be integrated with any IDE because it follows the Agent Communication Protocol. It's a protocol developed by ZAI. It basically enables any coding IDE to integrate directly with a CLI tool. Now, a few other notable things before we look at some of the tests. Devstral 2 is 123 billion parameter dense transformer model, so it's not an MOE or a mixture of expert. It has a context window of 256,000 tokens, which is a reasonable context window for coding tasks. Devstral 2 is going to be available for free via their API, at least for December. That's my understanding from their announcement. But then it's going to be priced at 40 cents per million input token and $2 per million output tokens, which seems to be a pretty good price for a model of this size. To run the larger Devstral 2, you will need 4 H100s. For the smaller one, you can use a single consumer-grade GPU, and you can run this in full precision on DGX Spark. And they recommend a temperature of 0.2, along with some of the best practices that they have mentioned in the Mistral Vibe CLI. So based on this single benchmark, it does seem pretty impressive. But people are also saying some good stuff about this model. So Klein and Keto Code, they tested this during the early access phase. According to a Klein team, this is the frontier open source coding model, and it delivers a tool calling success rate on par with the best closed source models, which is pretty important for agentic coding. And the Keto team says that it was one of our most impressive and successful stealth launches yet, surpassing 17 billion tokens in the first 24 hours. Now, in the rest of the video, we're going to look at a Mistral Vibe, which is a vibe coding CLI tool. It's completely open source, so I hope that there's going to be integration for other open weight and also proprietary models as well. Now, in order to run this, we're going to just copy this command. We'll just paste it here. Okay, so it needs Python 3.12. If you're curious, I'm using Warp, which is an amazing terminal tool. So right now, it's just upgrading my Python version. Okay, while this is updating, you can also use this within the Z using the agent communication protocol. So here, if you install the Z IDE, you can come to add more agents. And they have a list of different coding agents that are available. We also have the Mistral Vibe, so we can install this through the extensions. And now I have Mistral Vibe in my list of external agents that are available. And we need to provide the API key. So I'm going to get my API key. I will revoke this. Okay, so we're going to export this. All right, so it shows this. Here, you can actually select the theme. I'm going to go with the default one. We'll copy our API key, submit, and I think we're good to go. So for this, we're going to run a very quick experiment. I wanted to create a landing page for a SaaS. Let's see what it does. Okay, so one thing, even the bigger model is extremely fast. So here it came up with a plan. It's going to create a setup. Then it also talks about testing, which is pretty great. After the initial first quick generation, it seems to be taking its sweet time. All right, so here's the code that it generated. I'm going to allow it always, because it's going to write to the file. But it says the page is production ready with no console errors, and it's designed to achieve high lighthouse scores. Here's how Mistral Vibe looks like in terminal. It only gives you 100,000 tokens instead of the 256,000 tokens. For custom commands, we have status, which gives you the number of steps, sessions, and we also have the ability to change the model. Right now, there's only Devstral 2 available. I think there is also support for MCP, although I don't really see this here right now. But you can add MCP to Mistral Vibe. At the moment, I have very mixed vibes around Devstral 2, but do let me know how it performs in your own tests. And I'm kind of curious what the community makes of this release. Anyways, I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching. And as always, see you in the next one.